Welcome to this short introductory video about Safran Risk Manager. I will show you the key features, how to navigate and main data entry points. Start by entering a username and password. It is possible for the tool to be integrated with Office 365, which will give you dual factor authentication and single sign-on. Navigation around the tool is very straightforward. We have the ability to switch between views from project to risks by using the individual icon here. These present my risks and my actions. We also have a help facility which gives you frequently asked questions and also the documentation and the point of contact within your organisation. Under your name, we have the ability to change the profile. So this is any personal details, including changing of your password. And finally, we have the ability to change the profile colour. So I can move it from teal back to purple with the intention of making this available for people with colour blindness. Other navigation on the tool around the individual data is on the left hand side. So if we go to projects, and if I select a project now, you'll be able to see that the navigation pane opens up and we're now presented with data about the risk register, the dashboard, the reports, contingencies and trend. It's also worth noting that for some people, portfolio view will be also available. For using risks, by looking at the risks, the method which we've adopted across the whole platform is the ability to open tabs of risks, such that I can select by selecting the tick box and it opens a new tab. If I select the name of the project, it opens the project details with risk identification, risk assessment, impact analysis, and also an audit trail history. To close a tab, simply select its X box. To close all of the tabs, simply select the blue one. To switch between risks and actions, select the actions box. From here, any actions which have been assigned to you can be immediately opened. The project area indicates the different projects which you as a risk manager have got access to. Data associated with individual projects are accessible via the tabs which run along the top. To enable these tabs, select the Edit button. The first screen that opens when you edit is the Details tab. This gives you information about the project. The next is the Access tab. This tells you who can access the project. The Assess tab is where we identify the key financial and time criteria of the project. We also assign the appropriate matrix for the project by selecting it from the drop-down list. The delivery details give you the objectives for the project, and these are the things which will be affected by the risks. The phase gives you the life cycle phases of the project. CADEX stands for changes, assumptions, dependencies, exclusions and constraints, and is a way of capturing the data of the project so that you can identify the key uncertainties of the project and hopefully remove some of the risks from the register by determining the impactors of those changes, assumptions, dependencies, exclusions and constraints. There's also an audit history which tells you all the things which have changed within the project. This window also enables you to create a snapshot of the data. So you would be able to record what the data was looking like on a particular date. We also have a configuration which enables you to set defaults for the creation of new risks, and you can also change the Monte Carlo simulation data, including the p-value, the value of confidence, the iterations of the Monte Carlo, whether it's a fixed seed or whether to use the Latin hypercube formula. We can also import data from CSV files using a template, and we can also export the data from the database using Excel. When we look at the risk register contains all the key information which is captured about individual risks. Navigation of the risk register, we can search for any individual activity within the data. We've also got the ability to run filters on the data, which can include the changing of the status, the function impacted, who the owner of the individual risk is, its approver, and the type of risk that it is. It is also possible for you to open more than one risk register within the register itself, so for more than one project. So simply select alternative project names to go into the register from the hierarchical structure that is presented. The risk register can also be selected for different views. So select the view button, and from here you can create your own view of the data presented in the risk register, which can also be rearranged, so you can rearrange the order of the columns. Give the view a name, and then when you want to select that view again in the future, you can select the name of that view from the select view. To bring back all data, select default view. It's possible to do bulk updates to multiple risks. Simply select the tick box on the left hand side of the risk you want to change, and then use update risk, and from here you can update the owner, the status, or the function that's impacted. From within the risk register, we can either open the individual risk as a tab, so select the tick box and the tab opens. We can also enter that tab directly by selecting the name of the project, of the risk. Again, closing all the tabs using the blue box will close them. We also have the ability to change data within the risk register directly by using the edit button, which enables you to see data associated with the identification. You can also see data associated with its source by selecting the blue source boxes, the actions by selecting the action shield icon, and the impacts by selecting the yellow impact boxes. We're going to now open a risk in a tab. We use the risk identification and risk assessment to enter data into the tool. Risk identification identifies key elements associated with the title, the description, the owner, when is the risk likely to start, when is the risk likely to complete, is it a threat or is it an opportunity. We also have the ability to record notes, and these notes can be hyperlinks to external sites. Simply you highlight the site name and use the link button to create a hyperlink to that information. It's possible to give a subjective assessment, whether the risk is a high or a low. It's also possible to use these checkboxes to determine if this risk is an issue. An issue means it has 100% likelihood of occurrence at some point in the future. We can also determine whether we want to report this for external third-party reporting. The link to phase would select the date aligned to the phase of the life cycle of the project. If you select this, any changes to the life cycle of the project will change the end date of the risk. Any changes which are made on this page would need to be entered with the Save button. The Relationships tab enables you to create alternative identifiers for the risk, and it also enables you to say which risk is affected by this particular risk. Simply select the risks from the risk register which are going to be impacted by this particular risk. The categorization enables you to categorize the risk aligned to the project. We can choose the risk breakdown structure element. We can manually enter a work breakdown structure element. We can select one or more categories. We can also identify one or more objectives of the project deliverables. We can identify which phase in the life cycle of the project this risk is going to affect. And we can also identify the function which will be affected by this particular risk. Again, any changes made here requires the Save button to be pressed. It's possible for the users to create custom fields. This will be done by administration. We also have treatments. And this is the strategic treatment of how we're going to deal with the risk. We would describe the treatment strategy, the type of treatment it's going to be, the start date, the ownership, the strategy should this treatment not work, and finally we can record when the treatment was completed. The risk assessment enables you to capture the data about the likelihoods and impacts. It's built using the bow tie methodology. We can simply add new sources by pressing the plus, and this will create us a new source. We can link this to one of the KDECs, and we will assign it, assess the likelihood using either the qualitative, or if we select not applicable, we can manually enter a quantitative value. We can add a risk, either one from the drop down or add a new risk. A new action. A new action is simply entered in by identifying the name, the ownership, the type of action it is, the source it's going to affect, the impact it's going to affect, the anticipated completion date, and also the anticipated cost, if that information is known. The new action will appear in the action window. Once we've assessed the pre-likelihood and we understand the action, we can then assess the post-likelihood. We now have two sources in our bow tie. The same can be said for the impacts. We can add new impacts. Impact can be cost or time or qualitative. And each impact type will have its own sub-categorization. For costs, I've got expenses, labour or materials. We'd also want to identify which function is going to fill this risk should it occur. We would select, using qualitative assessments, the qualitative slider bar appropriate for the impact value. This creates us a likely value. We would also use the slider bar for the confidence on the impact. Now this is changing the minimum and the maximum values. In the same way that we identified the source, we can also identify the actions for the impact. Either select one which has been created or create a new one. Once an action has been selected, we can then select the post-impact value. If we wanted to enter quantitative values, we can simply select the NA, and now we have the ability to manually change the distribution type and the quantified values of the impact. It's possible to view the distribution on the plot. As you can see, we've got the post is tightly distributed, the pre is broadly distributed. It's possible to keep basis of estimate notes. Details of the risk data that's been captured is presented under the details window. Any actions which have been created are presented in the actions window. The treatment strategy is again a repeat of the overarching treatment strategy identified in the identification window. It's possible to clone actions. It creates a new title and you can then update this value with information as you require. We now have two impacts. The impact analysis gives details of the aggregation of the values that have been entered into the assessment. In this particular instance, we have time. This is my pre-treatment time. This is my post-treatment time. Details are provided on the right-hand side. If we create a cost action, a cost impact, you will see in the analysis that we now have cost details as well. There is an audit trail which enables the users to see who has made what changes and when. Simply select the View button to open the audit trail. Returning to the risk register and clearing the tab, you'll see we have a permanent tab. This is how we create a new risk. Select the new risk tab and enter data in the windows for the title. You can give it a description. You can qualitatively assess if it's a high or a low priority. You would give it a new source and you would press the add. You can also give it a cost, so we would be giving it a cost name and the impact tab, and give it an assessment, and we can also create a time, give it an assessment, and we can also assess a qualitative. So if we say this is injury, that is a health and safety hazard, and we can assess that with a value. When we press save, this new risk appears as a tab, and we are now able to fill in the additional information about its category, about the project details, the phase and the function, and we can save that. It's also worth noting that the end date is required. Once saved, there is an indication that the data has been saved successfully. Within the new tab, we also have a global risk list. The global risks enables you to pre-populate data within the new risk. Simply select the name and press add. It's worth noting that you require to create a assessment, a tab and an assessment before you can proceed to press the save. The dashboard gives an indication of all this data in a visual way. Each dashboard will default to the single project value. However, it's worth noting that you can select multiple projects to be displayed within the dashboard. Simply select the name and then press the refresh button. You can also use hierarchy to help you identify quicker programs of work within the dashboard. The priority chart indicates the threats and opportunities, the total number of threats and the total number of opportunities that are in their different life cycle phases: approved, unapproved, approved and closed. The chart on the right gives an indication of how well you're performing your risk closeout. This is captured during the lessons learned phase of closing a risk. The matrix indicates the likelihood and impact. It can be changed to alternative matrices on the fly, and these are recalculated specifically for that level. It can also be filtered. This is now showing us the cost impact on the matrix. We can also filter that further down by selecting, for example, the labour. If I were to select qualitative and identify health and safety, this will show me my health and safety impacts. The table underneath changes with the filter. We also have a Monte Carlo analysis. Monte Carlo analysis enables you to see the histogram and the S-curve. This is an interactive chart which allows you to turn on or off the histogram and on or off the S-curve cumulative distribution. With the cumulative distribution, it's possible to hover over the chart to determine the confidence level of the data. The next is the cost-benefit model. This gives an indication on the left of the individual risks which benefit the most from the actions taken. On the right is an aggregation of the project to show the exposure before treatment, the cost of the treatment, the exposure after the treatment, and the benefit derived. The categorization analysis shows you a count of either the function, the risk breakdown structure, or the individual ownership. At the same time, the value on the right hand side gives you the financial value exposure pre-treatment and post-treatment. The impact cost categorization breaks down the impacts by their different types: time, cost and qualitative, to help you determine if you have sufficient balance in your risk register. You can also identify each of the individual sub-breakdowns. For cost, we have material, labour, expenses, which can be defined by the user. Time and also qualitative. Throughout the dashboard, it's possible for you to capture data and recommendations and remarks for reporting purposes. Simply use the speech bubble to capture a remark. From here you can enter your remark and identify which risk or which project you want the remark to be recorded against. We also have the ability to capture the history and review the history of the remarks that have been made. Under the reports, we have a number of reports which can either be predefined reports, such as the risk details report, or we can have customizing reports, such as the risk register report. From here, select, for example, the high risk you wish to see, the threats, the columns of data you wish to be presented in the report, and then generate the report by hitting report data. The report is then presented underneath. This can be exported to Excel, output to PDF, or sent to the printer. Contingency allows you to capture a budget of a contingency, and it enables you to release and spend money from that budget and record how that's tracked through the life cycle of the project. It's possible for you to view the data showing the spends, how much was spent, and the type of expenditure that it was. The chart below gives an indication of how the contingency values align to the cumulative distribution. So from here we can see that the contingency on my post-treatment distribution is approximately 55% confidence. The trend analysis provides information about the trend data, which is this data can give you an indication of the Monte Carlo changes, the number of risks which have been added, approved and closed, the number of actions which are waiting to be started, underway or closed, and the changes in data associated with the contingency. If you've been given the portfolio view analysis, then this enables you to run reports at a high level of the project view across multiple projects. Simply select the portfolio which you wish to run a report against and enter load selection. We can now see the data associated with the individual projects which we've selected. From here we can run reports about that data. I hope you've enjoyed this short demonstration of the key elements of Safran Risk Manager. Please remember to contact Safran for requesting a demonstration of this tool. Thank you.